So, the spoilers are out for My Hero Academia manga chapter 334, and let's just say from what we see with the spoilers, we get the ramifications not only on New Order's effect on Shigaraki's body, but also the ramifications that New Order has on the story as a whole, as well as we get to see a potential hint to how Shigaraki is going to be defeated by Midoriya. And we'll talk a little bit more about that right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Drew, and I'm here to cover the spoilers for My Hero Academia manga chapter 334, and from what we see with the spoilers, it's going to be titled Parting Gift, most likely in reference to New Order and how Star and Stripe gave Shigaraki New Order, and it's basically that quirk going rampant inside of him. And in this chapter, from what we see with the spoilers, we get the ramifications of what is going to be going on in Shigaraki because of how he gets New Order, as well as what's going to happen to New Order itself, and potentially seeding in the potential plot thread on how Shigaraki is going to be stopped by Deku. So, there's a lot to talk about in this chapter when it comes to the spoilers, so with that, we're just gonna dive right in it, because we do have text spoilers as well as image spoilers, so, like I said, we're just gonna dive into it now. As we have, the chapter begins with the Jets going after Shigaraki, who now has wings. It is revealed that he stole this quirk from Nomu before blowing him up 2 chapters ago. He continues to look for someone to whom he can pass the New Order before his consciousness disappears. He continues to sense All Might's menacing presence in Star. So this is very interesting. From what we're seeing with the spoilers, it puts into a little bit more context what we saw at the end of last chapter, which isn't the flying Nomu flying near Shigaraki, but Shigaraki using the flying Nomu's wings to get away as he's trying to find a host to hold New Order, as well as trying to make sure that he's able to get away from the presence of Star and Stripe, who reminds him of All Might. So we're getting a little bit more into what's going to be going on with New Order as we get the next line of spoilers saying that he then propels himself at high speeds out of the pilot's field of vision. They lament and remember what Star said before the fight, that she would send their bodies back to their families. He says that she has surely surpassed All Might and became the greatest hero of all. So it's very interesting to see that when it comes to the greatest hero, it isn't something that is specifically to one person, but it just depends on the perception of the people's view on the greatest hero, and we get a little bit more of that in this chapter. And going into a little bit more of the tech spoilers, we see inside of a house where a guy and a lady are watching TV. He says that the power and the water have not been cut off yet, so they plan to enjoy a quiet life after they have been released from prison. They don't want to get involved in trouble anymore. The guy's name is Kashiko Kashi, a thief and serial killer. But soon after that, the house is destroyed. Shigaraki has just landed there and he's all beaten up, but he sees an opportunity in front of him. He suspects that Star has created a rule that will prohibit New Order from coexisting with other quirks, so he plans to steal Kashiki's quirk and then give him New Order so he could have control over New Order's user. So this is very interesting. A plot point that was brought up based in the last chapter, based off the assumption that the Nomu was still alive, is that this is something that Shigaraki would do. He would give the quirk over to someone and then by some extension or some way be able to get New Order back by being able to control that person. And from what we see with the spoilers, he's going to take the quirk away and then give him a new quirk so that New Order can't revolt against other quirks, which we're going to get a little bit more into why that won't be the case, and it's very interesting for why it won't happen the way that All For One wants. Because the next line of text will say that as soon as he tries to do so, an image of Star appears in his mind and calls him an idiot. Since the order was that New Order was going to revolt against other quirks, it ended up wearing out in the process by having to face the multiple quirks that All For One possesses. In other words, New Order ended up ceasing to exist. Star regrets not being able to destroy all of the quirks, but sends one last message to Shigaraki / All For One. As long as the will to protect continues to exist, the determination of a hero will be passed on. Surely someone will be able to put an end to them. And this is very interesting because we also have to remember that even though New Order does not appear to have any limits, that as a quirk, it does have a limit. Because if I remember correctly, quirks are like muscles, and if you overextend the muscles or work the muscles too much, you could damage them, and that's kind of what happened in New Order. It went beyond its own limits that a quirk can have and do, and it began to cease to exist. So it's very interesting to see that most likely New Order and Star and Stripe won't be in the story moving forward, but its main purpose was to serve to try and hinder and weaken All For One / Shigaraki, and that's very interesting to see, and we could talk more about that in the actual review. And going into the next line of text spoilers, we have All For One saying that he doesn't care about that, and that he won this battle simply by coming out alive. But deep down in his consciousness, someone is thinking for sure some hero is going to ... and we see a young Tinko Shimura surrounded by dozens of hands. He then says Midoriya. The jets arrive in Japan, and it's reported that they continue to search for Shigaraki after he ran away, but his whereabouts are unknown. The news of the death of the strongest woman and the existence of such a powerful villain shook the entire world. It was decided that no country would send any more reinforcements to Japan, as they decided to prioritize their own safety. We see Salam, the hero from Egypt, outraged by this decision. So there's a lot to say about this, but when I was talking about how we're getting hints to how Midoriya is going to eventually defeat Shigaraki, we see that Shigaraki, or should we say Tinko Shimura, is still looking to be rescued by someone, as he's calling for Midoriya for help. So most likely what's going to happen is that Deku is going to try and save Tinko in a way that is going to go against the plans of All For One and eventually lead to his defeat. So we're getting it sprinkled in here if the spoilers are accurate, which most likely they are, and this is kind of setting up the idea that Shigaraki isn't going to be defeated by action, but more by words, meaning that it doesn't matter how powerful he gets, that the main end of the story is going to be Deku saving him. As well as we get a little bit more showing how horrible the world can be and how they're going to try and leave Japan to its own devices, so we won't get any more help from other pro heroes around the world, potentially. And now we're getting towards the end of the spoilers, where we have the leader of the pilots reporting the events to the police and All Might, who says that he wishes he would have met Cassie. However, he claims that the efforts were not in vain, because the jets have the technology to detect the target's vital signs, analyze the quirks they are facing, and store that information. With this in hand, maybe they can discover some of Shigaraki's weaknesses. And there's a little bit more to say about that, but this is something very interesting, because it means that we're possibly going to get a list of all of Shigaraki's quirks, and they could potentially use this information to try and think of ways to go against him later on, especially what we see within the next line of text spoilers, which is that the next day, All Might went to the dorms to let them know that Shigaraki's completion has been delayed. He was supposed to reach perfect condition by tomorrow, but now he will probably stay unable to move for at least 1 week. They need to make the most of this time so that they can defeat Shigaraki and All For One. The final page shows Deku, Bakugo, and Todoroki. End of chapter. So yeah, this is very interesting because this shows that Shigaraki isn't going to be completed within that 3-day time span, and that this gives the heroes at the very least a week to prepare, which is very important because from what we've seen with the heroes, if they're given enough time to prepare, they can pretty much make any plan go off without a hitch, as long as there aren't that many like bumps in the road that get in the way, such as, you know, Shigaraki not dying. So it's going to be very interesting to see how we're going to be focusing on the students preparing for the war that they're going to have against Shigaraki, and seeing what plans that they're going to make and come up with the knowledge that they have about Shigaraki's potential quirks. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this is moving forward. So yeah, that's all I really want to say about the spoilers. Now, I want to wait more for the actual chapter to come out before I talk more about my thoughts and how I feel about the chapter. But overall, from what we're seeing with the spoilers, yeah, it seems as if this is going to be a lot longer of a process to fighting and getting to the point where Deku is going to fight Shigaraki than we anticipated. That the time frame has been extended by a week, but we are most likely going to be focusing on what the heroes are going to be doing, what the plans that they're going to have, with the new information that they're going to gain from Shigaraki's quirk. So it's going to show that it's going to be a little bit more time before we actually get to that final battle, which is very cool because it shows that at the very least, it's not going to be something that we're going to get to anytime soon within the next few chapters, most likely. So yeah, that's all I really have to say for now. Hopefully you enjoyed the spoilers, and if you did, leave a like on this video because it tells me that you really want me to cover the spoilers. And also leave a comment down below on what you think is going to be going on in the chapter if the spoilers aren't accurate. Most likely that they are, but hey, you never know. So yeah, leave a comment down below, leave a like on this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like this type of content, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be notified for whenever I upload more content like this. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!